Picture two people. Both retire on the same day. Both have $600,000 saved. Both withdraw $30,000 a year to live on. One of them runs out of money at 79. The other is still comfortable at 90. Same starting amount, same withdrawal rate, completely different outcomes. The only difference is what the market did in the first 3 years of their retirement. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it's the reason some retirements work and others quietly fall apart, not because of bad planning, not because of overspending, but because of timing that was completely outside anyone's control. Here's why the math works the way it does. When you were still working, a market crash was painful to watch, but it wasn't actually destroying your retirement. You were still contributing every month. You were buying shares at lower prices. Time was on your side. A crash during your working years is uncomfortable. A crash in the first 3 years of retirement can be genuinely catastrophic. The difference is the withdrawals. When you're pulling money out of a portfolio that's also dropping in value, two things happen at once. The market is taking a percentage off the top, you're taking dollars off the bottom. And unlike a working person who can just wait for the recovery, you're selling shares at the worst possible price to pay for groceries, utilities, and rent every single month while the market is down. Those shares are gone. They don't come back when the market recovers. The portfolio recovers in percentage terms, but there are fewer shares left to benefit from it. That's the scarring. It's permanent and it compounds in reverse. We'll make this real with two people. Call them Paul and Carol. Paul retires in 2000. He has $600,000 and withdraws $30,000 a year. The dot-com crash hits immediately. His portfolio drops 40% in the first 2 years while he's withdrawing. By year 3, he doesn't have $600,000 working for him anymore. He has significantly less, and the shares he sold at the bottom are gone forever. Even when the market eventually recovers, Paul's base is too small. He runs short in his late 70s. Carol retires 3 years later, in 2003. Same amount saved, same withdrawal rate, but her first 3 years happen to be good market years. Her portfolio grows slightly even while she withdraws. By the time a major crash hits in 2008, she has a much larger base to absorb it, and she never has to sell at the worst moment just to meet basic expenses. She's still financially stable well into her 90s. Paul didn't do anything wrong. Carol didn't do anything clever. The market just moved differently in those first 3 years, and it changed everything. By the way, if nobody's told you this stuff before, that's kind of the point of this channel. Hit subscribe if you want to keep getting it. New video every single day. Now, back to what we were saying. So, if you can't control what the market does in your first 3 years of retirement, what can you control? 3 things. The first is the cash bucket. Before day 1 of retirement, you want 2 to 3 years of living expenses sitting in cash or short-term bonds, completely separate from your investment portfolio. Not invested, not chasing returns, just sitting there, stable, ready to cover your withdrawals if the market drops in those early years. This means you never have to sell stocks at a loss to pay bills. You pull from the cash bucket instead, and you give your portfolio time to recover without touching it. This single step removes most of the danger from the first 1,000 days. The second is a spending floor. A lot of new retirees enter what's sometimes called the honeymoon phase. They've been waiting decades for this, and the first year or two they travel, renovate, celebrate. That's understandable, but spending heavily right at the start, in the exactly period when the portfolio is most vulnerable, is the one combination that can shorten a retirement by years. A simple rule helps here. If your portfolio drops more than 10% in any year during the first 3 years, you cut discretionary spending, travel, entertainment, big purchases by a similar amount. Not forever, just until the recovery happens. This guardrail protects the principal during the window when it matters most. It doesn't mean living small in retirement, it means being temporarily flexible in the years when flexibility has the highest financial payoff. Most retirees who do this never even notice the difference in their day-to-day life. The ones who don't are sometimes the ones who end up calling their kids at 78 to explain the situation. The third is psychological. This one doesn't get talked about enough. If your first 1,000 days go reasonably well, if the market is stable or growing while you find your rhythm in retirement, you build confidence, you stay invested, you don't panic, you let compounding do its work. If the first 1,000 days go badly, if you watch the number drop every month while you're also withdrawing, many retirees panic sell at exactly the wrong moment. They move everything to cash at the bottom, lock in the losses permanently, and miss the recovery entirely. That decision, made in fear during a bad stretch in the early years, is often the single moment that turns a recoverable situation into an unrecoverable one. The cash bucket doesn't just protect your money, it protects your decision-making. When you know your next 2 years of expenses are sitting safe in cash, you don't need to panic sell stocks at the bottom. The buffer gives you the psychological room to stay the course. This is why the first 1,000 days are different from any other period in your financial life. Not because bad things are more likely to happen, you could retire in a great market stretch and never face this problem at all, but because the consequences of a bad sequence without a plan in place are much harder to recover from than at any other point. The portfolio that took 30 years to build can be structurally damaged in 3 years of bad timing and poor sequencing in a way that no amount of recovery later can fully fix. Day 1001 doesn't automatically mean you're safe, but if you've built a cash buffer, set a spending guardrail, and made it through those first 3 years without selling stocks in a panic, the data strongly suggests the rest of retirement gets significantly more manageable. The fragile years pass, the portfolio has a base, time starts working for you again instead of against you. That's what Paul didn't have. Not more money, not a better plan, just a buffer that would have carried him through 2000 and 2001 without forced selling. 2 years of stable spending money would have changed his entire trajectory. If you're within 5 years of retirement, the time to build that buffer is now, before day 1, not after things go wrong. The 1,000 days don't wait for you to be ready. They start the moment you stop working, whether the market is at an all-time high or coming off a 30% drop. The only variable you control is whether you walk in with a plan or without one. If you found this useful, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with someone who's planning to retire in the next couple of years. They need to hear this before day 1, not after. Drop the word buffer in the comments if you want us to walk through exactly how to build and size a cash bucket for your specific situation. That's coming in a future video. Alright, that's all for now. We'll see you next time.